Long before he set foot in the NHL, Henry Boucher had already solidified his reputation as one of the greatest high school hockey players in Minnesota history. With a combination of raw talent, speed, and a natural ability to control the game, he became a local legend, captivating crowds with his electrifying performances. His leadership and skill propelled his team, the Warroad Warriors, to the 1969 state championship game, an event still remembered as one of the most intense in Minnesota high school hockey history. But what should have been a defining moment in his young career took a tragic turn. During the championship game, Boucher had already made an impact, scoring early and dominating play. However, just minutes into the second period, his momentum was cut short in a shocking moment that left the crowd in stunned silence. An opposing defenseman delivered a brutal, high hit, slamming Boucher's head into the glass. The impact was devastating. His eardrum was ruptured, and he collapsed on the ice, unable to continue. With their best player sidelined, the Warriors fought valiantly, but ultimately fell in overtime. For Boucher, the injury was more than just a physical setback. It was a cruel and abrupt end to his high school career, robbing him of the chance to finish what he had started. Fate would deal him another cruel blow 6 years later, on that very same ice. This time, it wasn't an accident. It was one of the most violent and shocking incidents in hockey history. During an NHL game at the Met Center in January 1975, Boucher was targeted in a brutal attack that left him permanently injured and effectively ended his professional career. The incident would go down as one of the darkest moments the sport had ever seen, a moment that overshadowed the immense promise and potential he had once carried. Yet, between these two devastating events, Boucher achieved remarkable success. Determined to move forward, he set his sights on international competition, joining Team USA for the 1972 Winter Olympics. There, he helped lead a young and underestimated American squad to a silver medal, proving himself on the world stage. His Olympic success, combined with his raw talent, caught the attention of NHL scouts, and soon after, he was drafted by his childhood dream team, the Detroit Red Wings. He was also pursued by the Minnesota Fighting Saints of the WHA, but chose to pursue his NHL career, eager to make his mark in professional hockey. Despite struggles with injuries and inconsistent opportunities, Boucher became a dynamic and beloved player, recognized for his skill and signature headband, a look that made him instantly recognizable on the ice. He showed flashes of brilliance, and for a brief time, it seemed he was on the verge of stardom. More importantly, Boucher's presence in the NHL was groundbreaking. As a Native American player in a league with little diversity, he became a role model for Indigenous athletes, inspiring many to believe that they too could reach the highest levels of the sport. But the tragedy of his career would forever be tied to the night in 1975, when an opponent's vicious stick attack left him permanently impaired. The damage to his eye was irreversible, and although he attempted a brief comeback, the vision problems he suffered made it impossible for him to perform at the elite level he once had. His NHL dreams were cut short far too soon. Born on June 1, 1951, on the U.S.-Canadian border in Warroad, Minnesota, Henry Charles Boucher grew up in a large family with deep Chippewa roots. His childhood was marked by profound tragedy. He lost one sister to a heart condition, another to a fire, and a brother to a gun accident. These early losses shaped his resilience, pushing him to honor his family's legacy through sport. Hockey was more than just a game for Boucher. It was an outlet, a passion, and a way to bring pride to his community. A naturally gifted athlete, Henry Boucher excelled in multiple sports, including football, baseball, track, and hockey. His versatility and dominance on the ice drew frequent comparisons to Jim Thorpe, the legendary Native American athlete known for his all-around excellence. Boucher played high school hockey for Warroad High School, where he became one of the most electrifying players Minnesota had ever seen. His skill, speed, and leadership made him a standout in a state that prides itself as the epicenter of American hockey. His legend was cemented in what is still considered the greatest game in Minnesota high school history, the 1969 state championship matchup between the underdog Warroad Warriors and the powerhouse Adena Hornets. Boucher was the star of the tournament, playing a full 60 minutes in every game leading up to the final. His defining moment came in the semifinal against Roseau High School, Midway through the game, he took a stick to the face, leaving his right eye swollen shut. But instead of staying out, Boucher had the wound stitched up and returned to the ice. With only seconds left in a tied game, he unleashed a blistering shot from the right point that beat the buzzer, securing Warroad's spot in the championship game. 4 minutes into the second period of the final, Boucher was once again the most dominant player on the ice. He had already scored a goal when he took the puck coast to coast, fired a shot that was deflected by the goalie, and chased the rebound into the corner. It was there that an Adina defenseman delivered a brutal high hit, slamming Boucher's head into the glass. The arena fell silent as he collapsed to the ice, unable to get up. The impact had crushed his eardrum, and he had to be carried off. Without their leader, the Warriors fought valiantly but ultimately fell 5-4 in overtime. With his legendary high school career now behind him, Boucher was one of the most sought-after hockey prospects in the nation. He committed to the University of Minnesota, where he was set to play under coach Glenn Sonmore. However, just as he was preparing to begin his college career, he received life-changing news. His high school girlfriend was pregnant. Prioritizing his new family, Boucher made the difficult decision to forego college and marry her. Instead of joining the Gophers, he turned pro, signing with the Junior A Winnipeg Jets of the Western Canadian Hockey League, a league known for its physicality and no-nonsense style of play. This decision would set him on a path that led to the Olympics, the NHL, and ultimately, one of the most tragic moments in hockey history. Boucher quickly made an impression in Winnipeg, showcasing his skill and physicality. His standout performances caught the attention of the U.S. national team, which was assembling a roster for the 1972 Olympic Games. The opportunity was too significant to pass up, and with the chance to represent his country on the world stage, Boucher made the transition. However, the stakes for him were much higher than just making the team. In 1970, with the Vietnam War in full swing, Boucher had begun his service in the U.S. Army, reporting for duty at Fort Knox, Tennessee. His Olympic aspirations came with immense pressure. If he failed to make the team, his next destination would not be the ice rink but the front lines in Saigon. The possibility of being sent to war added another layer of motivation, pushing him to perform at his absolute best. And perform he did. At the 1971 World Championships in Switzerland, Boucher was a dominant force for Team USA, scoring 7 goals in 10 games. His impressive showing secured him a well-earned spot on the Olympic roster, where he became one of the key figures on a U.S. squad that would defy all expectations. The 1972 U.S. Olympic hockey team was a scrappy and determined group made up of high school standouts, college stars, and fellow Army servicemen. Without the prestige or experience of their European counterparts, they were widely overlooked and expected to finish no higher than 5th. Powerhouse teams like the Soviet Union and Czechoslovakia, both stacked with professional players from communist regimes that didn't recognize the amateur status of their athletes, were the clear favorites. Sweden and Finland were also formidable opponents, leaving little hope for the Americans. Yet, against all odds, this underdog U.S. team pulled off one of the most stunning runs in Olympic hockey history. Their performance in Sapporo, Japan, would be remembered as one of the greatest yet most overlooked achievements in American hockey, a silver medal finish that proved they could compete with the best in the world. The defining moment of the tournament, and one of the greatest upsets in Olympic hockey history, came when the United States stunned Vaclav Nedomansky and the heavily favored Czechoslovakian team with a dominant 5-1 victory. This shocking result was nearly as improbable as the U.S. triumphs over the Soviet Union in 1960 and 1980. Riding the momentum of their victory, the Americans went on to upset Finland and secure a win over Poland, while the Soviet Union defeated the Czechs. These results catapulted Team USA from 4th place to an unexpected silver medal finish, an achievement few had thought possible. Boucher played a key role in the team's success, recording 6 points in 6 games and solidifying his reputation as a rising star in international hockey. At the same time, his professional future was already being shaped. Boucher had been selected 16th overall by his childhood dream team, the Detroit Red Wings, in the 1971 NHL draft. However, he also drew interest from the Minnesota Fighting Saints of the newly formed World Hockey Association, a WHIA, which made him their first pick. With both leagues aggressively pursuing his talents, Boucher was presented with identical 3-year contracts worth $60,000 per season. In the end, he chose to chase his NHL aspirations and signed with the Red Wings, eager to prove himself at the highest level. Fresh off his Olympic success, Boucher also received a reprieve from his U.S. Army service and was able to focus entirely on hockey. He joined the Red Wings for the final 16 games of the 1971-72 season, as the team pushed for a playoff spot. In his NHL debut, he made an immediate impact, scoring his first goal against legendary goaltender Jacques Plante of the Toronto Maple Leafs. However, his initial burst of success was short-lived. Over the remaining 15 games of the season, Boucher struggled to find the back of the net, and his scoring woes continued into the following year. He endured a frustrating slump, failing to register a single goal in the first 34 games of the 1972-73 season, an agonizing scoreless streak that stretched to 49 consecutive games. Struggling with a prolonged scoring slump and shaken confidence, Boucher was sent down to the Virginia Red Wings of the American Hockey League for a brief 2-week assignment intended to help him regain his form. When he returned to Detroit, he made an unexpected style choice that would ultimately define his image on the ice. Choosing to forgo a helmet, he opted instead for a headband to keep sweat from dripping into his eyes. This unconventional look was a bold departure from NHL norms, and when he first stepped onto the ice wearing it in a 1973 game, his teammates reacted with amusement and skepticism. However, Boucher remained unfazed and committed to his new look, which he would continue to wear for the rest of his career. Rejuvenated, Boucher rediscovered his scoring touch, netting 14 goals in 39 games while playing left wing alongside Red Berenson and Bill Collins. With his confidence restored, he became a fan favorite in Detroit, known as much for his aggressive play as for his signature headband. His most memorable moment in a Red Wings uniform came on January 28, 1973, when he set an NHL record for the fastest goal from the opening faceoff, scoring just 6 seconds into a game against the powerhouse Montreal Canadiens. Despite his resurgence, Boucher's time in Detroit was cut short. In August 1973, the Red Wings, seeking to strengthen their offense around young superstar Marcel Dionne, traded Boucher to the Minnesota North Stars in exchange for winger Danny Grant. While stunned by the move, Henry was also thrilled to return home to Minnesota. The North Stars were in the midst of a downturn, but Boucher quickly made an impact, emerging as the team's leading goal scorer with 15 goals in his first 29 games. At just 23 years old, he seemed poised for NHL stardom, proving that his early struggles were behind him and that his best years were still ahead. Henry Boucher's promising career and life would take a devastating turn on January 4, 1975, during a highly anticipated matchup between the Minnesota North Stars and the Boston Bruins at the Met Center. The arena was packed with fans, unaware that they were about to witness one of the most brutal incidents in NHL history. Boucher, known for his skill and speed, had never been closely shadowed by an opposing forward throughout his career. However, on this night, Bruins coach Don Cherry assigned enforcer Dave Forbes, a fourth-line winger, to relentlessly check him. From the opening face-off, the two clashed repeatedly. Early in the first period, Forbes drove Boucher hard into the boards, delivering a high elbow to his upper body. The two wrestled for control, and Boucher, managing to free his right arm, responded with a powerful overhand punch that sent Forbes to his knees. The situation escalated further when Boston's notorious tough guy, Terry O'Reilly, jumped in, but he was immediately ejected for being the third man in. Boucher and Forbes were both assessed 7-minute penalties and sent to the penalty box. Inside the box, the hostility did not subside. Forbes reportedly turned to Boucher and threatened, "I'm going to shove my hockey stick down your throat." Spectators nearby overheard more ominous words, with one witness claiming Forbes told Boucher, "I'm not going to dirty my hands, Henry. I'm going to use my stick." Another observer later recounted that Bruins veteran Bobby Schmautz egged Forbes on, telling him, "Get him the first chance you get." When the penalties expired, both players left the box just as play was stopped at the far end of the ice. Boucher skated toward his bench, unaware that Forbes was following closely behind. Without any provocation or warning, Forbes suddenly struck, driving the butt end of his stick directly into Boucha's right eye. Blood immediately poured from the wound, covering the ice in a shocking display. Stunned and disoriented, Boucha instinctively clutched his face, fearing he had lost his eye. But Forbes's assault did not stop there. As Boucha collapsed to the ice, Forbes jumped on his back and began pummeling his head and body with his fists. He grabbed Boucha by the hair, repeatedly slamming his face into the ice while the blood continued to spread. The horrifying attack was only stopped when North Stars forward Murray Oliver intervened, wrestling Forbes off his injured teammate. Oliver later recalled, "I probably saved Henry's life." What should have been another step forward in Boucha's career instead became the night that would change everything. The brutal assault left lasting physical and emotional scars, turning what had been a promising future into an uncertain and painful road ahead. Boucher was carried off the ice, unaware of the full extent of his injury. The damage was severe. He required 25 stitches, and it took 10 days before the swelling subsided enough for him to open his eye. When he finally did, he was confronted with a grim reality. He had significant double vision in his right eye, and the likelihood of permanent damage was high. Further examination revealed that his right orbital bone, which holds the eye in place, had been fractured. The following day, doctors performed surgery in an attempt to reconstruct the area, but the long-term effects of the injury were already evident. Forbes later called Boucha in the hospital to apologize, but his words rang hollow. He later defended his actions, claiming that if he hadn't retaliated, it would have sent a message that he was weak and that Boucha would have walked all over him. His actions, however, had consequences beyond just the ice. 3 weeks after the attack, Forbes was charged with aggravated assault in Minneapolis, and a trial was scheduled for the summer of 1975. Had he been convicted, he could have faced up to 3 years in prison. The NHL also took action, suspending Forbes for 10 games, a punishment that some considered too lenient. In response, 4 of his Bruins teammates, Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, Carol Vadnais, and Johnny Buczyk, threatened to boycott the 1975 NHL All-Star Game in protest, believing the suspension to be excessive. Prior to the incident, the 5'8" Forbes had been seen as an unlikely NHL success story, an undersized but hard-working player who had climbed the ranks from Division II hockey at American International College to earn a spot on the formidable Big Bad Boston Bruins. To many, his violent assault on Boucher seemed out of character. However, those who had followed his career more closely knew this wasn't the first time Forbes had been involved in an on-ice attack. In a 1970 game between American International and Northeastern University, Forbes had a violent altercation with Northeastern player Ralph Morrison. While skating behind Morrison, Forbes swung his stick with force, smashing Morrison's mouth, breaking his jaw, and knocking out 4 teeth. Morrison, bloodied but furious, attempted to retaliate, dropping his gloves and chasing Forbes down the ice. Instead of backing down, Forbes escalated the situation, repeatedly slashing Morrison in the face with his stick, leaving deep cuts below his left eye and between his eyebrows. Morrison's injuries were severe. Along with a broken jaw, he suffered a concussion and required 35 stitches. "It was the worst bloodletting I've ever seen," recalled Gideon Fernald, a Northeastern player who witnessed the brutal attack. "I've never seen a player carved up so bad." With the attack on Boucher, Forbes had once again crossed the line, and this time, the entire hockey world was watching. Following the attack on Boucher, Forbes' hockey career never fully recovered. He was selected by the Washington Capitals in the 1977 intra-league draft, but was released after just 1 season. Meanwhile, Boucher made a brief and difficult return to the ice, playing 13 games with the North Stars despite his impaired vision. However, the effects of his injury were impossible to ignore. His double vision made even basic plays challenging, from receiving passes to controlling the puck. His struggles on the ice were compounded by growing frustration and depression, leading him to self-medicate with alcohol. His behavior became erratic. He frequently arrived late to practices and repeatedly violated team curfews. The North Stars, seeing no improvement in his condition or conduct, suspended him for the remainder of the season. To make matters worse, his attorney had failed to finalize the paperwork for his 4-year contract extension, allowing the North Stars to withdraw the offer, leaving him without a team and without financial security. Despite these setbacks, Boucher was given another chance when the World Hockey Association's Minnesota Fighting Saints reached out, eager to add him to their roster for the 1975-76 season. This would prove to be the most talented group of players he had ever skated with, featuring stars like Mike Walton, Dave Keon, and John McKenzie, alongside enforcers like Paul Holmgren and Jack Carlson. His contract was reportedly guaranteed, giving him a rare moment of stability in a career that had been derailed by misfortune. Meanwhile, the legal case against Forbes dragged on throughout the summer of 1975, attracting international attention. It was rare for an athlete to face criminal prosecution for an in-game incident, and the trial became a highly publicized spectacle. When the case finally went to court, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision. 9 of the 12 jurors voted to convict, but the deadlock resulted in a mistrial. Prosecutors ultimately chose not to pursue a retrial, and Forbes walked away without further legal consequences. In the hockey world, many began to view him as the real victim, arguing that the legal system had no place interfering in what they considered an internal matter of the sport. In the aftermath of the attack, Henry Boucher found himself increasingly alienated from the hockey world. Though he managed a brief resurgence in the WHA during the 1975-76 season, scoring an impressive 35 points in 36 games, his situation quickly deteriorated. The Minnesota Fighting Saints, the team that had given him a second chance, was financially unstable, rapidly burning through funds in what many described as a doomed business model. Adding to his misfortune, Boucher's attorney had failed to confirm that his contract was guaranteed, an oversight that left him vulnerable when the franchise inevitably collapsed. With the Saints on the verge of folding, Boucher declared himself a free agent and signed with the NHL's Kansas City Scouts for the remainder of the 1975-76 season. However, his struggles continued. The Scouts were one of the weakest franchises in the league, and after relocating to Colorado, as the Rockies in 1976-77, Boucher found himself largely sidelined. His playing time dwindled not due to his performance, but as a result of league politics. Coach Johnny Wilson was reportedly instructed to keep him out of the lineup as retribution for Boucher's ongoing lawsuit related to the Forbes incident. His career came to an abrupt and unceremonious end after just 9 games with Colorado, as the team bought out his contract for 2/3 of its value. At only 25 years old, Henry Boucher's once promising professional hockey career was over. Reflecting on the end of his time in the sport, Boucher later admitted, "The eye injury took the wind out of my sails. I lost my drive. The league and the Players Association wouldn't return my calls. The way the league was treating me, I knew they wanted me out." Struggling with deep emotional wounds, he turned inward. "I put myself through hell. I hated hockey. I was really hurting inside. I kept to myself," he recalled. Life after hockey proved to be just as turbulent. Boucher drifted from place to place, living in Spokane, Detroit, Warroad, Idaho, and Alaska. He battled depression and attempted to numb the pain with alcohol and drugs, which only pushed him further into isolation. His personal life crumbled. He went through 2 divorces, struggled with financial instability, and saw multiple business ventures in the meat and music industries fail, leaving him bankrupt. In 1980, he finally reached a civil settlement with Forbes and the Boston Bruins, a small victory in a long battle for justice. Yet, the legal win did little to lift the weight of his past. The pain, both physical and emotional, remained, and for years, he continued down a path of self-destruction, haunted by the career and life that had been stolen from him. In 1984, Henry Boucher experienced a profound turning point while hiking in the remote wilderness of Alaska. There, he came across the body of a golden eagle lying in a snowbank, a powerful symbol in Native American culture. For Boucher, it felt like a message, a sign of change. "I knew something significant was going to happen," he later reflected. Inspired by the moment and at the urging of his daughter, he decided to return to Warroad, the place where his journey had begun. Rebuilding his life, Boucher became a licensed real estate agent in 1987 and dedicated much of his time to coaching youth hockey. He also took on a new role as an advocate for Native American culture and history, encouraging Indigenous pride and raising awareness of the contributions Indigenous people have made to society. His passion for this cause became a guiding force. "After hockey, I found myself in my culture, my traditions, my spirituality, Boucher once said. I want young Native Americans to find the strength that we all have been given, but don't always recognize. His connection to the hockey world was rekindled in 1995 when he was inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, an honor that celebrated both his athletic achievements and the perseverance he had shown throughout his life. Over time, Boucher embraced his past in professional hockey and enjoyed reuniting with former teammates. He also became a supporter of his second cousin, NHL star T.J. Oshie, who affectionately calls him Uncle Henry. In 2014, Boucher published his autobiography and founded a film company, which has been working on a documentary highlighting the contributions of Native American athletes in the U.S. Olympic movement. In recent years, Boucher has faced serious health challenges. He suffered a stroke in 2018, and in 2019, he underwent hip surgery, only to endure a heart attack later that year, which required heart surgery in August. Despite these obstacles, he has continued to find peace in his heritage and his ability to help others. Through his journey of healing, he has also come to terms with the event that changed his life forever. Through time and through self-healing and getting back to my roots as a Native American and finding my spirituality, certainly part of that is forgiving, he shared. So I, over the years, have forgiven him. But I've never talked to him, and he's never contacted me, or our paths have never crossed. Henry Boucher's road was never easy. From personal tragedies in his youth to the devastating injury that ended his NHL career, his story could have been one of bitterness and regret. But instead, he found strength in his heritage, his community, and his ability to inspire future generations. Through years of hardship, he learned the true power of forgiveness and resilience, proving that his legacy goes far beyond the ice. What are your thoughts on Henry Boucher's remarkable story? Let us know in the comments, and if you love deep dives into the lives of hockey's unsung heroes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more stories of the legends who shaped the game.